All right, I'm just going to give everybody a minute to settle in and get admitted to our webinar tonight. On behalf of the Faculty of Social Work, I want to welcome you to the University of Calgary, and it's the two-year Bachelor of Social Work or BSW information session. And I am Gail Zook. I'm the Associate Dean Undergrad Programs, and I'm really excited to go through our program with you. So I'm just going to give everybody one more minute, and then we'll get started. Thanks. All right, welcome everyone. As I mentioned, this is for the information session for the two-year Bachelor of Social Work, BSW, Faculty of Social Work, University of Calgary. I want to start by doing a land acknowledgement, acknowledging that in Canada we have many diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people that call this land home, and their ancestors have walked on this land in time immemorial, and we are honored to be a part of that, to affirm our commitment and our responsibility in walking well with people who are Indigenous across Canada. The Faculty of Social Work also wants to acknowledge the need for equity, racial justice, decolonization, and inclusive excellence across our programs, across Canada, and across the globe. So what's tonight's agenda? I started by doing the welcome and introductions. I'm going to talk to you about why this BSW. There's a lot of options across Canada, and so I'm going to talk to you about what's great about our program and what's exciting. I'm also going to talk to you about what program options there are. I'm going to talk in fair detail about the application process, because I know that's why lots of you are here tonight. And then I'll walk you through how we evaluate your application and give you some contact information. So let's get started. So why the University of Calgary? The University of Calgary Faculty of Social Work is the largest fully accredited school of social work in Canada. We have the BSW, we have the MSW, we have PhD, and we have graduate certificates. We're very fortunate to have national and internationally recognized scholars who are involved in many social justice and research projects across Canada, in Alberta, across the globe. And this really provides incredible opportunities for our students to be engaged in transformative learning and research. Our curriculum is current, it's topical, and it's informed by students, community social work scholars, and practitioners. It's a newer BSW program that was completely redesigned, and that's exciting and makes it current. We're also excited because our BSW program is flexible and accessible, and we offer two types of programs, which I'll talk in more detail about in a minute, which is blended, the blended program, and the fully online program. I'm also pleased that we're very fortunate to offer small class sizes in a big university. So our classes typically have 40 students, not 300 or 400 students in other undergraduate education. So why a BSW with the University of Calgary Faculty of Social Work? We have core courses that are reflective of the shifting social work landscape. We have foundational skills and theories, looking at knowledge and skills for diverse settings. We have really interesting social work options, which explore emerging topics, and our field education is quite state of the art, and it's really a wraparound support for students who are going out into the field. So if we look at the foundational skills and theories, the core courses, the social work options, and the field education, it's really important that all of our courses comply with the national accreditation standards of the Canadian Association of Schools of Social Work Education. And so we make sure we cover all of those required foundational skills, which really makes the BSW a transportable degree across Canada and other Commonwealth countries across the world. So the foundational skills are really looking at exploring the scope of social work practice in your community. It's about building the foundational knowledge that all social workers at an undergraduate level are expected to have. And we really lean into examining the paradigms, the theories, and approaches to your professional social work practice. When we look at core courses, the current curriculum looks at core courses such as the multiple dimensions of mental health, leadership for social justice, practice in an interconnected world, green social work, Indigenous peoples, and Afrocentric social work practice. That's alongside the opportunity you will have to make some selections around your social work options. These are varied. They addictions, recovery, trauma, loss and grief, mental health, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, child welfare, social work with immigrants, social work in the inner city, intimate partner violence, and these are offered at different times throughout your curriculum. Field education is what social work calls the practicum, or where you go out into the field to learn how you're going to be a social worker. In other words, to take the foundational skills and the elements from the core courses and actually apply them in practice. So we send you out into the community where you have the opportunity to integrate learning into social work practice, and we call that field education. So if I think about what are your options for the Bachelor of Social Work, well, it depends. So I'm going to talk about both of these options in greater detail as I move through the presentation. The blended program, for those of you who went through COVID online with your programs, is like a hybrid model. Okay, so we call it blended, but it's hybrid is another term for it. It's 20 months long. It's offered in Calgary, Edmonton, and Lethbridge. And you'll be doing courses in person on campus, one full day a week, but also online classes that are scheduled throughout the week. It's important to recognize that all of our programs are full-time programs. There are no part-time programs with our faculty. So typically in the blended program, you have more courses per term. You're completed in 20 months. You go through the year rather than just September to April like some other university programs, and that's also important to recognize. We expect you to be able to devote full-time hours to this program. So it's very difficult if you're working full-time plus expect to attend school full-time because this is a full-time program. The online program is 24 months long and it's completely online. We have no expectation of you coming to any of our 3 campuses. So it's very accessible to people in rural, northern practice, southern practice, or in other places in Canada. The classes are online, but they're scheduled real time with real instructors, so it's interactive. Those classes are offered Mondays and Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings. It's also important to recognize that you are expected to learn outside of those times. So there's other independent learning that's required, and you need to make sure that you have time to complete that. We anticipate that that program takes about 24 hours or more per week in order to do it well. Your year 3 and 4, your classes are year-round, fall, winter, spring, and summer. What's important that regardless of the program that you're interested in, they both require, of course, your internet, your computer usage. They're both accredited with the Canadian Association of Social Work's Education. And they lead to the same parchment. Parchment is the degree. You get the same piece of paper at the end of the day. They don't differentiate that one was online, one was partly online and partly in person, which is the blended one. And they're both considered full-time, which makes you eligible for scholarships, bursaries, student loans, and those types of things to help you out through your course of studies. Part of our design is really to ensure that we're meeting the needs of diverse learners. So you have your blended program, but you also have that online program. The Lethbridge blended program, it's a smaller campus in southern Alberta where you're going to go in one day a week onto the campus, and our instructors are really connected to the community and have close proximity and working relationships with rural and Indigenous communities throughout. Students in the Lethbridge blended program also enjoy the University of Lethbridge and University of Calgary student services, which is quite exciting. The Edmonton blended program is downtown Edmonton, the Enterprise Square. Those of you who are from Alberta, it's in the old Bay building. And we do have the advantage in Edmonton of being a very research-heavy campus. Most of our scholars are involved both locally, nationally, and globally, and so there's lots of research opportunities there to get involved in. Both campuses also have regular events connecting issues of social justice, doing social acts of social justice, Black History Month, all of those types of events. The Calgary Blended program exists on the main University of Calgary campus and are at the Hunter Student Commons. And there also has the Pipe Lodge as part of the faculty for all students to access and enjoy and to learn. Our online program is very vibrant. You can access it from anywhere. There is a director of the online program. She has regular office hours once a week that are drop-in to students. She pops into classes on Zoom to make sure everybody's doing okay. And we're really working at building the vibrancy of that community. Students create close relationships as well in an online community. So those are our 4 communities is Calgary, Lethbridge, Edmonton, and then online. So now I'm studying in Winnipeg. What about my practicum? Practicums can be anywhere in Canada as long as they meet our requirements. And it's important to recognize that while you're in school full time, during your practicum, you're in practicum 35 hours a week during the day. So you really need to plan accordingly in terms of thinking about if you are working part-time, do I need to take a leave of absence? Do I need to have some family fly in somewhere to stay with me for a while to watch my young child because I need to be in practicum during the day? The curriculum plans are available online, so you can plan your 2 years accordingly and think ahead and really put those supports in place that you need to be successful with your BSW education. So let's shift now from the program and talk about the pathways or how do I apply. So there's 2 ways to apply. One stream is what we call the university transfer stream. The university transfer stream are folks who have completed 2 years full-time study at a university level, or they've completed a degree. So you might already have a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Economics, whatever the case may be. You're still classified as a university transfer student. The other way is if you have a social work diploma from an approved Alberta institution. So only in Alberta, all right? If you have an approved Alberta social work diploma and you're completing that diploma with one of the institutions we have an agreement with, you're only eligible for the online post-diploma route. You cannot apply for the blended programs. Your curriculum is slightly different because you already have some social work experience, and we need to really balance out what we call the liberal arts background, those university level non-social work courses with the social work courses, and we need to balance the scales. So you're going to be having a slightly different curriculum. You can only apply to the online route if you have an approved Alberta Social Work Diploma. If you have an approved Alberta Social Work Diploma, you may not apply to the blended program. And I want to be really clear on that. Make sure when you're filling out your application that you click on the right box so that you're filling out for those applicants applying for the Alberta Social Work Diploma. So you might have a Bachelor of Arts, you might have a Bachelor of Science, but you also have an approved Alberta Social Work Diploma. You must only apply to the online route, regardless of your other credentials. Okay? Now, if you're a university transfer student or what we call post-degree, after-degree student, in other words, you have another degree, you have the option of applying to the blended program in Edmonton, Lethbridge, or Calgary, or you can also apply to the online university transfer program. Again, you have the option of blended or entirely online, but only if you have those transferable university courses or a completed university degree. One of the things that's required for our university transfer students is the Social Work 201. It's a program requirement. For our post-diploma students, you don't need Social Work 201 because you already have a lot of social work background. So I'm just going to speak to the Social Work 201 for those of you who have transferable university courses or a completed university degree. Now, what about these are the questions that I typically get. around applications. Well, I have a social services diploma from British Columbia, or I have a social work diploma from a college in Ontario. If it's not from Alberta, we do not grant you like the equivalent of 2 years of study. So you might typically maybe get some of that um, credited, but you would need to apply for admission, have them assess it, and our admissions team with the university tells you what credits they will give you for it and how many then you would have remaining. Okay, so you would not apply under the post-diploma route. You would apply under the university route because we don't recognize those. We don't have transfer agreements with those institutions. I also get a lot of questions around, well, I don't have a social work diploma, but I have a diploma in addictions counseling. I have a diploma in child and youth care. I have a diploma in rehabilitation. I have a diploma in justice. Again, admissions has to assess that, and they determine how many credits they're going to grant you of university study. So you need to apply to have that assessment done. You may or may not qualify for the program, but you have to apply in order for them to assess that. Okay. So I have I don't know, a degree or maybe 2 or 3 degrees or a diploma outside of Canada. We cannot assess these as a faculty. Our team does not do that. The University of Calgary larger admissions team does that. So you would need to reach out to the admissions office at the University of Calgary, and they can guide you through the process of how they assess those credentials. I don't know if I have enough transferable courses is sometimes what I'm asked, because I attended a college 8 years ago, a little bit 5 years ago, took a break, and now I've got 10 more courses. You have to apply to the University of Calgary to the Bachelor of Social Work program to have them assess your courses, okay? Our faculty and our student services team does not do any form of assessment of credentials or courses and credit transfers, okay? So for those of you who have university transfer courses or post-degree students, you're going to need that Social Work 201 program requirement. You need to have that in the BSW program. I highly encourage people to take it prior to starting their studies in September. So, and it's offered online at the University of Calgary every term. So you can take it in the summer, you can take it in the spring, those kinds of things. You need it as a part of your program requirement. For those of you who have your post-diploma from Alberta and you're the post-diploma applicant, once again, you do not require Social Work 201. Only university transfer students require the Social Work 201 program requirement. So now it becomes, how do I apply? I know I really want to apply for this program. How do I do that? Again, I want to remind those of you who have an Alberta Social Work Diploma, you are only eligible for the post-diploma online program. We do not have a blended program for you. So step one is review your instructions from the application. Prepare your program-specific questions, and I'll talk to you about that in a couple of minutes. You have to submit your responses as a part of your application. You want to finish the submission of your online application and pay the application fee, and then you'll be considered amongst the applicants for the program. It's exciting that we're expanding our offering a little bit in terms of allowing applicants to have choice. So for university transfer students or the after degree applicant, you'll be able, as a part of your application process, to declare 2 program choices. So I'm in Edmonton. I want the Edmonton program, but I don't know, an aunt who lives in Lethbridge. I can go and stay with her. I want to apply for that as my second choice to give yourself more, increase the likelihood of you getting accepted to the program with either your first choice or your second choice. So as a part of the application process, then you're going to be completing program-specific questions that's embedded in the application. There's 3 program-specific questions. One of them asks you to reflect on who you are as a person. What's your lived experiences, your life influences, and discuss how they've contributed to your pursuit of social work education. In other words, why social work? Why not something else? Why not veterinary medicine? Why social work? And so we really want to get to know you as a person, your lived experiences, and the life influences leading you down this path of social work education, because social work is a profession. The second question says, tell us about your community engagement. In other words, what are you doing in the community? An issue that you're the most concerned about? What do you think the root causes or contributing factors are? And even if you haven't been in the workforce per se, maybe it's volunteering at your child's kindergarten, at your youth group in the church, um, or some other area that has really interested you in terms of what the social issues are. And we want to hear about, what do you think's causing that social issue? The third one is, what do you hope to develop in our program through your social work education? And how do you see your future practice as a professional social worker? In other words, what are your aspirations to do with this degree? What are you hoping to develop? In other words, what do you still need to learn? And how do you see your future practice as a professional social worker? So in terms of the program specific questions, I really encourage you to give a lot of thought to them prior to submitting them. You want to be clear and concise. You want to share who you are in the world and what brings you to us. Write in the first person, so it's not the writer or the author, it's I and I, okay? Double check it and triple check it. In other words, correct errors, okay? So you've submitted that. You've filled out everything you need to with the online application. You filled out online the program specific questions, the answers to those. You've paid your application fee, and now you wait. So what happens to my application now at this point? We believe strongly in transparency in terms of how we look at applications. So the program specific questions, those answers, those three answers account for 50% of your application. In other words, our admissions committee, and it is a committee, looks at those program specific question answers and awards them up to 50% of your 100% towards application. Your GPA is competitive, and what that means is that a GPA of a 3 does not get the same points as a GPA of 3.5. That accounts for 50%. The calculation for your GPA is based on the most recently completed 30 units, starting with courses completed prior to the application deadline. So we work backwards from there. All right. Really important that you give thought to the program specific question answers. It's 50% of your application, and your GPA is the other 50%. So what happens is you are rated on a scale up to 100, and that's then what we record from our assessors. So we have faculty members who review each and every application very carefully. So when do I know whether or not I'm accepted into the BSW program of my first choice or second choice, or into the post-diploma online program? You need to check your status in your student center. So when you apply to the University of Calgary, you're going to be given an email, and you're going to set up your student center. You're going to be given an ID number. Very important that you start checking that, because that will tell you where the status is of your application. We're hopeful that we can send out the most of our recommendations for admission by late March. The closing deadline is March the 1st. I think March the 15th is for transcripts, and we're hoping by the end of March that we can start making offers, or most of our offers. So make sure that you check your student center for those. Sadly, we have more interest than we do spaces and resources for our BSW programs, and that means it's a competitive process. So not all students, not all applicants get accepted into their program of choice or into the program at all. And if that's the case, I encourage you to apply again another year. Social work is a profession. It's something that's near and dear to you, so to try again. So I'm starting to close off the presentation tonight. One of the things that is difficult is for me to address your questions and for the amazing student services team that's with me tonight to provide those answers because it's in a webinar format. So once I close this session, you're invited to join me live in a Zoom room, and that's the link there. So I'll give you time to take that link. The password is BSW, and in the Zoom room, it's real time, so you can ask me your question and I can answer it, and our incredible student services staff can also provide some assistance. You can also book an appointment with our student services staff, and you can also go to my drop-in open office hour of asking the associate dean. If you click on those, you'll find out what those dates are, and the code is there for you to use your phone. I hope it was helpful to you tonight. I'm assuming you're here because you already know you want social work and wanted the nitty-gritty of the information about the program. And I'm so happy and pleased that you've attended. And for some of you, you are welcome to drop into the Zoom session. In a few minutes, you can stay until I answer your question, or you can just get your question answered and leave. But I'm hoping to see lots of you in that room in 5 minutes. Thank you so much. And on behalf of the Faculty of Social Work in the University of Calgary and myself as the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Education with the faculty, thanks for attending tonight.